to go ahead. So again, thank you all for joining us. I'll turn things over to Brett Landis.
Hi, I am one of your co-chairs for Boulder County Senior Law Day. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited for today's presentation from Liz Parker at the DA's office. But we have a few housekeeping matters I just want to touch base with folks on before we get to Liz. Obviously, we are doing this in a virtual format rather than our normal in-person event. So things are a little bit different. You should be aware today's webinar is being recorded. The video will be available later on our website for Boulder County Senior Law Day. Kyle, our host, has muted all the participants today, so please remain on mute unless our speaker invites you to unmute yourself at some time. If you do have questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat at the bottom of the screen or wait for Liz to invite questions. She may take questions early or later. It's really her choice, but if you have Q&A, that's your chat button to type in your questions. We have upcoming webinars every Tuesday and Thursday from September 8th through October 1st. Our next one is next Tuesday. We're really excited. A couple of the court clerks are going to be speaking to us about access to the court during this time. If you have anything, if you know anyone who has anything coming up in court, or you think you might need to access the courthouse, it's a really important one to log into because so much is different right now. And they are very, very knowledgeable and very generous to be sharing their time with us. All of our webinars are going to be from noon to 1. Our very last one, there will be a bonus session, kind of giving some extra estate planning stuff. And so we expect that to be a really fun one. And you can sign up for any additional webinars and access those recordings at our website, which I've listed below, which is bouldercountyseniorlawday.org. This year, we are unable to do our normal Ask a Lawyer program. However, the Boulder County Bar Association, a platinum level sponsor, has started a virtual free legal clinic. So if you are missing that Ask a Lawyer, if you've been saving up burning questions all year, please sign up for that legal clinic. You would get paired up with an attorney for a brief legal consult on a number of issues. And you can access that by calling the Bar Association at 303-440-4758 or applying online at their website, which is www.boulder-bar.org. And finally, our Senior Law Day handbooks. Right now, we are offering them available online at seniorlawhandbook.org. The whole thing for the 2020 edition is available on that website. Alternatively, you can contact Erica Corson at the Boulder County Area Agency on Aging, 303-441-1170. We will have a few copies available. We haven't, there's going to be a little delay on making those available to folks though. So again, the website has the entire handbook available in, I believe, PDF format for each chapter. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and I am really excited to introduce our speaker today. So we are here to talk about scams and frauds, and we are so lucky to have Lizbeth Parker presenting on this issue. Liz is the specialist in the Community Protection Division of the Boulder County District Attorney's Office. Those of you who are present for Tuesday's talk from our district attorney heard a lot about the work that her unit does, and you're about to hear much more. She routinely handles these types of consumer complaints and reports of fraud and financial exploitation of older adults in our community. And she provides significant education and outreach on a number of subjects to the community. All of this is done in an effort to help prevent our community members from being victims of crime, and we are just so lucky to have her. So thank you, Liz, and I will turn this over to you.
Great. Thank you, Brett. And thank you to you as co-chair of the Senior Law Day Committee and to all the members of that committee for having me and our district attorney's office here today to participate in Senior Law Day in 2020 in this virtual format. I'm happy to see you and happy to hear that so many community members are here with us today. So thank you to all of you for coming. Thanks again to the Boulder County Bar Association for not only helping with the tech on our day today, but for sponsoring the event at this level and really giving us all of this assistance. As Brett mentioned, and as many of you know, Michael Doherty, our elected DA, gave the Senior Law Day event its keynote address on Tuesday, and his presentation, both recording as well as the slide presentation that he made, will be available both at the Boulder County Senior Law Day website as well as through the Bar Association too. So thank you for making those available to folks if they couldn't take place today too. I will, in just a moment, get to the matters at hand today because there's so much to talk about, but I do want to reiterate that I am the member of the Community Protection Division in our district attorney's office. And our probably most important and certainly the job, part of my job I hold dearest to my heart is what I'm doing here today is to provide information and outreach to the community to help us from becoming victims of crime in the form of these financial crimes and scams and frauds and so forth. So we will delve in to these 2020 events in just a second. But I did want to just mention that our division, the Community Protection Division, also has a consumer protection function, and we take consumer complaints from folks in our community about businesses, both local and farther afield. And we will try and help reach a negotiated resolution if a consumer in our community has a dispute with the business. So that's certainly another function that myself and our staff and our volunteers do every day. And as Michael mentioned on Tuesday, of course, it is our unit, the Community Protection Division, that investigates and prosecutes crimes against older adults and what our Colorado criminal laws call crimes against at-risk persons in our community, which our laws define as anyone age 70 or over and anyone age 18 or over with disability. So it is our unit that will take a look at those crimes with a special eye and our specialists in investigating and prosecuting those crimes. So that's what we do, and without further ado, let us talk about what we have seen and heard about in 2020. I'm going to share my screen now for a portion of time because I do have some slides with some illustrations and so forth on them. So I am thinking that you see that now, my introductory slide, and if you don't, you can put something in the chat box or in the Q&A, or Kyle or Brett can certainly let me know. It is impossible, of course, to talk about scams and fraud in 2020 without talking about COVID-19, the coronavirus. And oh, my slide is now not advancing. There we go. Okay. As I said, it's not possible to talk about scams and frauds without talking about COVID-19, unfortunately. And as we noticed many times in our office, scammers follow the headlines. And there have certainly been plenty of headlines to follow this year. Our United States Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, reports that in 2020 so far, they've received close to 200,000 complaints related to coronavirus scams, phone scams, email scams, fake websites, fake Facebook posts, you name it. And victims have reported losing over $134 million so far this year in scams that are related to the pandemic. As I said, scammers do follow the headlines. This is no exception. And to give you a very current example, I don't know if many of you have seen in the news over the past few weeks especially, there's a lot of news about vaccines and the race to a vaccine, or a number of places competing about vaccines. When is a vaccine going to be available? And of course, just this week, we heard from a few community members who received emails in their inboxes, sight unseen, with the subject heading urgent. COVID new vaccine approval. Well, of course, there has been no new vaccine approval, and it's always worth reminding everybody that no vaccines or drugs have been approved specifically to treat or prevent COVID-19, and that it's our United States Food and Drug Administration who's going to inform us of both those results and efforts and hopefully successes. But certainly, as an example, it doesn't take long for something to appear in the news and for the scammers to be have their thumb right on that, as we've already seen this week with these emails that have come through. So of course, we have heard about scamming related to the COVID-19 in all of the areas that you see there on your screen. Cures, treatments, vaccines, as I mentioned, prevention measures, offers for test kits. You see there on the right, that's a script of a robocall message that folks received about receiving a free testing kit, and press 1 or 2. These come at us in so many ways these days, including phone, by telephone message, robocall, live voice on the other end if we pick up the phone, in our email inboxes, as text messages, and even through social media, both in terms of posting as well as private social media messages, like through something, for example, like called Facebook Messenger and the like. Scammers are also setting up fake websites to sell us things, supplies that can, touting safety like masks and hand sanitizers, but all kinds of other purporting to give us information about the virus in all kinds of other ways too. In fact, again, the FTC reports that over 10,000 new website domain names were created this year in the United States that are related to the virus. They have names in them like COVID or vaccine or test or quarantine. And the FTC estimates that over half of those are fake. I'm sure it's a very large number, but the FTC figure is over 50% of those are touting fake products or information. Websites offering goods might offer them even if they're actually selling them at exorbitant prices. But most often what we've heard about is goods that we're purchasing on these websites might never arrive at all. You may have also heard in the news about contact tracing. Contact tracing is the process of identifying people who may have come in contact with somebody who has tested positive for coronavirus. And contact tracing legitimately is done by our public health organizations. But again, the imposters are well on that road again. They're posing as contact tracers lately, and they're calling or texting us to tell us that we may have been exposed to somebody with the virus. And then they tell us, as you see in the lower right, to click on a link to find out more, to ask questions, and so forth. But while our public health agencies do conduct contact tracing, it's important to remember that the real message, the legitimate message, doesn't have a link to click on. They're letting you know, and they follow up with you in other ways. And you can always, if you receive a message like this, you can call our Boulder County Public Health Agency to follow up. You can call my office, who will put you in touch with them. But we recommend, and we certainly strongly suggest, that you not click on a link in a message like this, both if it's contact tracing or anything else, because these links, as we'll see and talk about during the course of today, lead you to bogus information. They might demand information from you, personal information, and at their worst, they allow somebody remotely to dig into your device, a cell phone or a computer device, that through which they could then look for passwords and take data from your own computer. So our rule of thumb, and it certainly applies to contact tracing as well as other text messages and emails that we get, is to take a breath and think before you click on a link that comes in anything at you. Just yesterday, as I was actually preparing for this talk, I got a text, it looked like a huge emergency from Wells Fargo, which is where I bank. and it said unauthorized payment going across. And I have a daughter in college. I just got her this Venmo account which transfers cash, and I thought, oh no, what is she up to? And of course it said click here, and I took that breath and called her instead and my husband and said, hey, I think this is a scam. And it indeed was. I went to my Wells Fargo banking website and I logged in with my own credentials, right? I didn't reply to that text message and I didn't click on the link in it. I went with my own credentials and I said, hey, I just got this message. And they said, nope, that's a scam. So when we need to check up on something, we go to the real McCoy, right? We go to the place where we know we are going to the legitimate place to get information, and that goes for anything related to COVID-19 or certainly anything else, especially where it concerns our finances, our personal information. I already mentioned some fake emails going around about virus and health information, and here's an example of one that was going around earlier this year that looks like it comes from the World Health Organization. Of course, the subject line up at the top has a little spelling error in it, which sometimes clues us in that these emails are scams. But what all of these emails have in common is they want you to interact with it. And here it's that blue box in the middle that says safety measures. And then the instructions are click on the button below to download. Never click on the button below to download. If you wanted information from the World Health Organization, the CDC, anybody else about COVID or anything else, I have an example later in our slides from Netflix. My account at Netflix, for example, close this email, delete it, and go in a different way. The World Health Organization publishes its bulletins and whatnot on its website for anybody to access. You don't have to click through an email. And the email, as I said, when you click through, damage can certainly be done in any unsolicited email that we receive like this that's asking us to click for more information or click to do this or download this attachment, because we simply don't know what are in those. They can ask us for more information. They could also infect our computers or our devices in any number of ways. Certainly we've seen a number of financial scams with, I call them a COVID twist, but involving in some way or some effect of COVID-19, and they're not just health-related scams. The greatest amount and the greatest number of complaints we heard were relating to the government's economic impact payments, which we know of as stimulus payments that came out earlier this year. Now, most of the stimulus money was distributed by about June of this past year. There's still a couple of questions about folks who maybe didn't get enough or didn't have money come for dependents and so forth, and that money might still be forthcoming. But more importantly, Congress is now talking about a second relief package for Americans. So it's important to remember what stimulus payments are and how they arrive to us and how they don't. The first round in March, April, May, June, we certainly heard a number of complaints of people getting phone calls about how they might speed up their stimulus payment receipt in the mail, how they can get more money if they claim certain things, how somebody was called by the government purportedly saying, I just need to verify your personal information before we send out your economic impact payment, and so forth. And of course, all of these are false. Their government doesn't do anything except send the money. That is what happened in the spring, and should we be so lucky to get another payment before the end of 2020, that is how they will do it in the fall. They will send it, as they did in the spring, to direct deposit if that's how someone has received their tax refund in past years. If not, they also chose to send checks in the mail. I myself got a preloaded debit card in the mail with my stimulus payment on it that I had to take to my bank and deposit like a check. My bank was actually really confused, but we got through it and the money got deposited. The important thing to remember is nobody's calling us about these. Nobody's asking us questions about these. the money is just going to come if it's decided by our Congress and signed by our president that we will get another relief package and any more relief money. It was the same thing, if some of you remember, when our government, federal government, gave us all new Medicare cards at the end of 2018. We heard about so many scams involving those. Call us to give us your social security number and you'll get your new card. None of that happened. Medicare cards were just mailed to individuals who needed to receive them, and that is what happened with the first round of economic impact payments, and it's certainly what will happen with the next one. Charity and investment scams, we've heard a number of that are related to COVID-19. Certainly charities soliciting donations to assist either those in need financially or those who are in need for health-related reasons in connection with the virus. Investment schemes telling us that we could get in on the ground floor, quote unquote, of new investment that's going to lead to the vaccine or a cure or a payment, and enticing us that if we get in now, our money will multiply, right? Our advice on these, as with any donation or investment related to COVID-19 or not, of course, is to do your homework. There are plenty of places to investigate whether a charity is legitimate before we hand over our money. My personal rule of thumb is really never to give money to anybody who calls me. And I've often told the example, which is not COVID related, about a gentleman who called me saying he was from PBS, our public television station, and gave me the whole spiel about the pledge drive and so forth. And I said, well, great, I'd love to give, but I'm going to hang up now and call you in the morning. And why don't you give me your name and I'll give you credit for my donation. And I'm sure you can imagine what happened next is that he hung up the phone. But give money when you're going to them. Be the proactive one, whether it's an investment, a charitable solicitation, and so forth. I don't give money in response to them coming to me anymore. Likewise, our Colorado Secretary of State's office maintains a list of charitable organizations who are licensed to do business in our state. You could look them up through that. You can call my office and we'll help you find that before you give. And likewise, our United States Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, has a database called EDGAR, which stands for something that I didn't write down. And you can check out a company's finances and operations on their database before you spend that money investing in something, especially COVID related. So many of these have come up in 2020 saying you can get in now. Other financial scams related to the virus are occurring at our front doors as well, with more people maybe isolated, less able or willing to go out and do errands. There are services that have popped up that offer to do errands for us. But again, we're wary of anyone appearing on sight unseen, unsolicited, offering to grocery shop, run errands, especially asking for payments or something like that in advance to do so. Better to use a trusted family member or friend for your chores, or call upon our county resources that can help connect you with people who volunteer to help us all through these times where it might be difficult or we're unwilling to go and do them ourselves. There are Boulder County resources that can connect us, such as the Area Agency on Aging, which have volunteers and connect with other nonprofits throughout the county to help with that kind of thing. So there are places to go without responding to that person who's knocking on the door that day. Of course, as more of us have been staying home, schemes have abounded to work from home, make money from home, make money doing this and that, and never leave your home. And so many of these are opportunistic at best and outright scams at worst. Some of them might offer you to make money by shopping, reshipping packages, even putting decals on your car. But some of these involve illegal activity, like shipping goods overseas that might be sent from one place to another, and then you're asked to ship them out of the country. They might involve huge investments for you to buy into a mailing list or something and then not really deliver those mailing list items that you're soliciting for some sort of business might be very old and be very stale lists themselves. Or they simply won't produce. And I've just been working with a community member over the past couple of weeks about one of these decal offers. Put a decal on your car and make money just by driving around. Again, it involved a huge buy-in to receive the decal, and then nothing on the receiving end from driving the car with a decal on it. So we have to take these with a grain of salt. You could always call our office and we will help point you to resources to check these out, check with the Better Business Bureau and so forth. Sometimes I just put company names into an internet search with the word scam after it. And I'm always pretty surprised at what comes up, because a lot of these kinds of opportunities aren't really what they seem from their own web pages or on the surface. And then lastly, of course, there's folks out there impersonating banks, lenders, offering help with our bills, our credit card debt, mortgage forbearance, loan forgiveness, and so forth. They might come in by phone, again, email, any of the ways that I mentioned earlier, with touting some insider know-how. We know how to negotiate lower rates with card providers, or we know how to get you a credit card to consolidate debt, and so forth. Even if these companies are legitimate, much of what they're offering are things that you can do yourself and for no charge, because these companies are going to charge fees in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And there are ways to consolidate debt, to work through a credit issue, to find out more information about the current programs that are available for mortgage and rent adjustments, payment plans, mortgage forbearance, all the COVID-related federal government programs that have come out this year, without having to pay for them. Our Boulder County, again, has a wonderful resource called a personal finance program, where they are counselors that can help both restructure debt that you have, as well as a huge source of support and information for mortgage forbearance and loan forgiveness and things like that that have been enacted during COVID-19. Boulder County also has a webpage on all kinds of rental assistance available now during the pandemic. So the message on all of those is don't take that bait. Even if these companies are legitimate, there are ways to accomplish the goals that they're telling you about without paying their huge fees. And our office can certainly assist in those efforts as well. Certainly that's what we have seen the most of in terms of COVID-19. Unfortunately, haven't gone away. In fact, there have been a huge uptick once again about calls that are coming from people identifying themselves as being from Social Security lately, really in the past few weeks, maybe towards the end of summer and the end of August and now, where they're telling us that our Social Security number is being used in another state, and it's going to be shut down, quote unquote, or our benefits are not going to arrive, and so forth. We've heard about folks receiving big checks in the mail from Publishers Clearinghouse, which is, of course, with a letter that says, "Ooh, don't tell anybody, and then you'll have to give us some of this money back to claim your prize, to pay the taxes," and so forth. The troubling call about a grandchild or other family member who says they're in trouble and they need money right away. Often these calls, a new twist in 2020, we've heard that these supposed grandchildren, for example, are also giving us the name of their supposed attorney. And this attorney needs the money, and to try and really lend more of an air of legitimacy to what they're calling about and what they're telling you. I looked up a few of these attorney names as they've been reported to me, and actually you could find attorneys by those names around the country in a pretty simple Google search, but of course the phone numbers don't match up and the contact information doesn't add up. It's really just a ploy to get us to really believe that somebody is in trouble, has a lawyer, and needs some legal help. Romance scams is something I talk a lot about, unfortunately. And again, a Federal Trade Commission statistic, this scam alone, people reported to the FTC losing over $200 million in 2019. That is a lot more for a single scam than any other of the types of scams that we're talking about, where many of these scams result in a loss to a victim in hundreds of dollars. The romance scam median reported loss, the loss on right in the middle of what people report losing to the Federal Trade Commission, is more in the neighborhood of almost $3,000. It's a significant, for lack of a better term, unfortunately, moneymaker for the scammers, where they've set up a fake online profile at a dating website or a Facebook site or something like that, a Facebook profile. And really, you interact with them over oftentimes over a period of time. And then an ask might come for money, right? It might be under the guise of paying for a plane ticket to get together, travel expenses, medical expenses. They need to pay off a debt or an investment for a new opportunity in a business or otherwise. The serious part of that kind of thing is that for months or weeks or maybe sometimes even years or more, we've gotten to know this person, or think we have, and we trust them, and we feel we know them and their families, so that when that request comes for money, it doesn't strike us as anything out of the ordinary. And that, of course, has been their objective all along, that we will hand over the money. But certainly, as it says in the graphic here, never send money or gifts to anyone you haven't met in person. These proliferate the internet. I have a statistic from Facebook. Yes, Facebook reports removing 3.2 billion fake profiles in 2020 alone, and that's only the first 2 quarters. So from January to June of 2020, Facebook removed over 3 billion fake accounts. And it's so difficult for us to tell the reals from the fakes, but we can do other things by realizing, no matter when that request for money comes in a romance kind of situation or friendship situation with someone we've met online, to take that deep breath and to really scrutinize and tell someone else at that point about what this is about, because sometimes somebody else can be a little bit more objective than we can, because we're emotionally invested in that friendship or relationship at that point. Finally, tech support scams and hacking. Of course, the tech support scam takes advantage of folks like me who just want my technology to work. I don't know a whole lot about it. And I get a pop-ups or on my screen or a call from Apple or Microsoft or Google saying, oh, we've detected this problem and you have to give us your credit card number to fix it. Or better yet, give me your email address. We will send you an email, and just click on the link. Well, we've already talked about clicking on those links. They often allow someone to do what's called remoting in, to get into our computer and dig around, infect it with a virus, look for passwords and things like that. Important to know that Apple and Microsoft and IBM and Dell and anybody else doesn't have that capability. They detect on a global basis problems with their machinery, and they fix those by giving us software updates. So it's important for us to recognize that little pop-up that says, oh, their software update was installed, because that is how they provide us with some support and some measure of repair. They don't contact us individually in any way to say we've detected this problem, because they frankly aren't detecting that problem for our specific computers. The other side of that is to keep our software up to date. And when we're offered to do an update, we take it, we buy virus protection software from a reputable dealer, we install that, and we keep that up to date. Excuse me. Hacking. Well, sometimes we can't prevent a hack if it happens somewhere else. like of an email provider or a different organization. But keeping our own software up to date and our own virus protection up to date goes a long way in preventing us from getting hacked as part of that hack. And if we ever hear about those, or oftentimes we hear from folks that say, well, my email address just sent an email to everybody I know, and I don't know what that was. Oftentimes that is a result of a hack somewhere else, but there are measures that you can take both to stem that tide. Changing your email password is at the very top of that list. And of course, our office has online privacy flyers and digital support office flyers that really do have a number of checklists to just keep ourselves safe online. I did mention a couple new tricks and twists to watch out for in 2020, and I mentioned briefly at the beginning social media messaging. That's an example of a phone screen on the right where somebody, the name of the from has been blurred there, so you can't see it, but it's an example of somebody hacking into somebody's Facebook account and then sending you a message. Frankly, it looks like it came from a friend of yours, but that profile, that account has been hacked into. And of course, it's a very enticing message, and it's something that they're trying to get us to, again, click on a link. Especially if you haven't been corresponding with this person all the time, or it just kind of pops up out of the blue like this, I would really scrutinize that and wonder, maybe even call that person or respond in some other way, not by clicking on this link, and say, hey, did you send me this? Because this is the kind of thing that happens more and more and more with social media, private messaging like Facebook Message, or other ones like Facebook Messenger, sorry. Other ones like WhatsApp, Instagram, all of these have a private message function now, but they're traditionally, they're a huge source of folks hacking them, unfortunately. There's also, of course, you might have even detected these yourself, that are social Facebook messengers and so forth kind of messages that look like they're coming from a retailer with a free offer or something like that. There's one going around right now that looks like a pitch from Amazon that's offering hand sanitizer for free if you spend $50. And then they provide a link. So if you're looking for free hand sanitizer and know you're going to be spending the $50 on Amazon, close that message. Don't click on the link. Don't reply to it, but go to Amazon if you have an account there and are interested, because their offers are going to appear. It's under a word right at the top on their banner. It's not offers, it's sales of the day or sales or something like that. You'll find all of those offers by going to them rather than responding to that message that you might receive. Brushing, I don't know if you've seen the term in the news. It was a new one to me over the summer. This is one where you really feel like you've hit the jackpot. Goods arrive at your door that you didn't order and you didn't pay for. This is because the sellers, sometimes they're shipping empty boxes or a box with like a jewelry box in it that's empty. It might be flashlights. What else have we heard about? Speakers, little mini speakers and so forth, cleaning devices. And they're doing this to boost their sales, oddly enough, or to ghostwrite a review as if it came from you as the recipient of that package. So because my visual down there has a picture of Amazon boxes, I'll stick with the Amazon example here. What do you do if you know you didn't order these and you're hoping you didn't pay for them somehow, but they appear at your door? Well, the first thing certainly is to contact Amazon or the merchant, the retailer from which the package has come, and tell them so. Tell them you didn't order or pay for these. But also to take a step further, if you have, as I do, an Amazon account, look in your account profile to make sure that things weren't ordered and delivered to you using your credit card and you weren't the one who did it, because that indicates a different level of theft, an identity theft of your credit card. And then look in your profile to make sure that someone with your name from your account didn't review a product. The people that are sending these out are doing so both to boost sales numbers, because those go by packages, numbers of packages shipped, or to be able to post reviews that look like they came from a verified buyer, which they're claiming is you, even though you didn't buy them. Just by receiving that package, you can be claimed by them as a verified buyer of a package. And I would always think that if this happens with whatever merchant, and you shop with that merchant online, it's a good idea to change those passwords for that account as well. You know, with all of these scams that we've been talking about today, I keep using, and scammers keep looking at and using what I call big names, like Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix, even Uber. Why? Well, because the criminals know that these are companies we use all the time. They are companies that have high amounts of revenue, even per minute. I've seen it broken down to. And as I said, of course, they follow the headlines, but they also follow the money. They're banking on the fact that we might tend not to scrutinize as much messages, phone calls, emails, social media posts, ads from these names, because they're such big names and they're such household names now. So maybe a good rule of thumb is just to be a little more skeptical of things coming your way that are purporting to be from these big names, because they really are used a lot, both for regular commerce and for illegal commerce and for scamming and for defrauding. Finally, I'll just mention briefly the census and the election. Of course, 2020 is a census year and an election year. And I've already mentioned several times that our scammers follow the headlines, right? The census is wrapping up, and they are still knocking on some folks' doors if they have not responded to the census yet. They are also, contrary to our general rule that the federal government doesn't contact us by phone, sometimes the census will call to do quality control on a census form that you've already completed, or if there's a problem with a census response, like you filled it out online, perhaps at their website, but it came back to them blank. They may call. Truthfully, the thing to watch out for with census or election calls, which we know will, if they haven't started bombarding us already, they shall in short order, is that no organization will ask us for our personal information. The census will not, of course, ask us for money. They won't ask us for our social security number. That's not part of the census. There's no bank account information that gets communicated as part of the census, no credit card information, none of that. So if somebody does call or email purporting to be for the census, but ask any of that kind of information, that's time to stop the communication, because it's not really the census who's contacting you. Election scams, of course, will come right along with legitimate efforts by candidates and parties and causes between now and November that will contact us in all the ways we've already identified, to do surveys, voter registration, solicit donations, and so forth. And that's when I rely on my personal rule not to give money to people who contact me. Of course, I and you and anyone else might want to donate to political causes, and we might not, but if we do, we need to go to them. And I don't hesitate if I get a phone call from someone soliciting a donation to say, I'm going to find your organization myself and I will give my money that way. We don't ever really know for sure who's on the other end of those solicitations for donations, whether it's a political organization or anybody else. So I just make a rule not to give to them and find them myself if I want to give. Oh boy, that was a short amount of time for a lot of scamming information about what we've heard about in 2020. And I just want to spend the last few minutes, literally a few minutes before taking some questions, through the chat box or the Q&A box there, if you type those in, about what we can do. And certainly knowing and recognizing these warning signs that we've talked about throughout today. Taking just very basic and some preventive measures that we can all be aware of, especially on the phone. Being vigilant day to day and asking for help and reporting. And I'll just go through these a little bit quickly, but to go through each of these in turn. Knowing the warning signs, certainly who are they saying, who's the person saying they are? Is it the World Health Organization in an email and they want you to click on something? Is it somebody calling saying they're from the Social Security Administration? Recognize things like the government, the Social Security Administration doesn't call us. They write us a letter if they want to get a hold of us, and then we contact them. Recognize a warning sign is what are they asking for? It's 9 times out of 10 going to be money or personal information. Sometimes access to your computer if it's a tech support scam. When do they want it? This is a huge red flag warning sign. They want it now. They don't want to get off the phone and have us think about it, right? They want whatever they're asking for right away. And they will often, I've heard a couple cases of the grandparent type of scam, the family member in trouble, where they want to stay on the phone with you while you go to the bank or a King Soopers to buy a gift card or something like that. They don't want to lose that connection, and they want whatever they're asking for done right away. And then the last big warning sign is how they're asking us to pay. They're asking us to pay mostly in ways that are not easily traceable. Cash in a brown envelope, frankly, I've heard a few times this year, to be sent to a scammer in a post office box far away. Increasingly, gift cards. You'll see on the bottom here is an example of how they want you to, quote unquote, pay by gift card, which is to transmit to them either by taking a picture of the back of the gift card after you've scratched off that ID number, is like handing them the gift card itself. That gift card that you've loaded with your own money, bought at the store, and then transmit those numbers is like transmitting the gift card to somebody, and it's very difficult to shut that down once it's gone across. They can either then redeem that gift card, but they also buy and sell those numbers, unfortunately, and our money is drained off those gift cards pretty quickly. I'm very confident in saying that anytime someone's asking you for money this way, to go to the store and to buy a gift card, to scratch the number off the back and transmit that number to them whatever way they want, by phone, by taking a picture of it or whatnot, it's a scam. Legitimate businesses do not ask us to pay this way. And it is time to stop the transaction and shut down the communication at that point if you're asked to do any kind of payment like that. Oops. Oh, sorry. That was something off of my computer. That was actually an example of a Social Security call that I had elsewhere on my screen, but I think so many of us have heard these lately. Taking measures, of course, they start out with the very simple, right? I don't send money in response to somebody calling me, and I don't give them information. I seek them out if they need it or I want to give it. Hanging up always when you find yourself on the receiving end of one of these calls. I have heard again and again from our community members, especially this year, that they feel they have beaten the scam calls and the robocalls by just not picking up the phone. And I know that's difficult sometimes, but if you don't pick up the phone and when you don't recognize the number on your caller ID, you go a long way to not being scammed. They don't have a human voice on the other end of their phone, so they might be apt to call a little less in the future, but you also don't go down the road with the scammer. If it's somebody that you realize, if you haven't picked up the phone that you needed to speak to, it takes about 20 seconds to pick the phone back up and to call them back. Lastly, our phone providers, and mostly our cell phone providers, but also our landline phone providers like Comcast and CenturyLink, are providing us with some better call blocking and call screening protections. And most of our big cell phone providers, like our AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, offer a level of call screening or call blocking, what have you, for free. Sometimes our phones are coming with these already, and sometimes we have to download an app onto our phone to enable them. But here's how they work. The phone provider, the phone company itself, has a number of, has its own database of huge amounts of telephone numbers that they have identified as being scam numbers. When one of those scam numbers calls you, the phone company runs it through its own database, and you might see come up on your screen, scammer calling, because that's how your phone company has identified it. Sometimes they ring once and hang up. Sometimes you have to accept it or reject it right there. It'll just go away. But it's certainly worth considering for both landlines and cell phones. And our office has, I think a flyer on each one of the landline companies that folks use in the community for the most part, as well as those major cell phone providers. Those features all have different names depending on if it's AT&T or Verizon or whatnot, but we can get more information to you about those. Yes, taking measures includes, of course, many of the things we talked about in terms of receiving emails. This was an example on the right of a pop-up on my computer screen about a Microsoft problem, which was not real, not legitimate. As I said, Microsoft doesn't give us these messages, and they certainly don't ask us to call numbers that are likely going to ask us for more information, or to send us a link to click on that's going to let them get into our computers. It is the mail. I talked about the checks that are arriving from Publishers Clearinghouse, quote unquote, or other prize givers. We need to, first of all, recognize the warning sign that those big checks are not what we hope they are if we're lucky enough to win the Publishers Clearinghouse giveaway, and will certainly result in us giving our own money in any further request from those folks, like, oh, you just have to pay the taxes or something like that. We talked a little bit about door-to-door scams too. These have certainly not gone away. Again, just as I don't pay to somebody calling me or emailing me, I certainly don't, quote unquote, pay at the door. I'm aware that there are heavy duty sales tactics, especially in person, from people who knock on our door, whether it's for a driveway repair or a hail damage repair to our roof, or somebody offering to do errands for us in relation to the coronavirus. But I generally don't, and will get a card if it's something I want to do business with. And look into the Better Business Bureau. You can call our office as well, and we will help you determine whether something is legitimate or not, no matter how it's coming our way. Being vigilant, of course, has to do with a lot of things we've talked about already. Here's that Netflix email I got on the right that says, "Hi, dear," which is to us always an indication it might be fake. But also that red box, update, right? Don't click on the red box, of course. Be vigilant to this kind of email from any company with which you might have an account and so forth. Go to Netflix's website, log in with your credentials if you have a question about your account being suspended, heaven forbid, right? Always monitor statements as you receive them. You have 60 days on a credit card statement to dispute charges you either don't recognize or don't authorize. You can review your credit report now every week. Receive one from annualcreditreport.com. Again, like a bank statement, it's important to contact a credit bureau if you see something that was opened in your name that you don't recognize or something else. We talked a little bit about passwords and changing them, but it's a good idea to do them as part of everyday vigilance. Change passwords for bank accounts and financial accounts more often than others, perhaps. Use long, strong passwords that really do involve numbers and letters and symbols. Don't use the same password for every single account that you have online. And we talked a lot about thinking before you're clicking on any of these kinds of things coming at us in terms of links or replies or attachments. Just as Mr. Doherty talked about locking your car doors on Tuesday and keeping your garage door closed to ward against burglaries at home and in your vehicles, these are ways that we can be vigilant about both our digital lives and on the screen before this, our telephone lives and things that are coming at us by phone. Last but not least, of course, help. Ask for help. Our office is here for you. You would call our number for the district attorney's office and ask for the community protection division. As I said, we would much rather hear from you before something happens than after, when you're suspicious or skeptical or wondering if something's legitimate or not. Because once communication has happened, and especially once money's been transmitted, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get back. So we're happy to help. Our website is there. It has flyers and information about every topic I talked about in much more detail than I could go through today, but certainly we are here for you both throughout the pandemic and always happy to answer questions, as I will have a look at the chat box now. Thank you so much. And I'm going to get out of my screen so you can see me back. There. And I'm thinking that you can see me, and I'm going to have a look at my chat box to see about questions. Yes, one question is, what can we do to fix the phone scam, faked or spoof caller ID numbers? Yes. Spoofing, for those who might not know what it is somebody using a different phone number. It may be a number in use or not in use, a disconnected number, an older telephone number perhaps, but it doesn't even matter whether the number they're using is in service or not. But that's the number, the fake number, that appears on your caller ID. And it allows the caller, the scammer, to hide where they're actually calling you from, which might frankly be somewhere halfway around the world. And the question is, what can we do about this? It is difficult, and we'd have to depend a lot at this point on our phone providers, like you mentioned Comcast here, Sir, or Verizon. They're getting better at detecting these, because often the numbers that are used to hide where the caller is actually calling from are disconnected phone numbers, and the phone companies have ways to detect that and to add those to those databases that I talked about when they block calls. I will say that's a very imperfect system. I know that there was legislation signed by our United States Congress back in January of this year that requires our phone companies, like Xfinity, Comcast, Verizon, and the rest, to make caller ID better, to simplify that legislation a great deal. And part of making it better is to have caller ID really represent to us where that call is coming from. And that's not something that we can subscribe to or apply to or turn on, flip a switch and turn on for our phones, but it is just something that's going to happen probably more slowly than we would like, frankly, but it is supposed to happen. And I think it may be happening, because lately on my cell phone, I will see caller ID pop up and say out of US or foreign country, I think it said once. One time it had the name of a country, and so I just don't answer those calls. I know that I don't know anybody in whatever country was named, and I certainly don't expect calls from foreign countries. So I think it is starting, but I know those are efforts that are underway from our phone providers, and they have to lead the way on this. It's not really something that we can install to have something better there. I see that it's 101 on my computer screen here, so I am going to end here. I really thank you all again. I thank the Senior Law Day Committee, as well as the Bar Association and all of the other sponsors for the event, for allowing me and our office the opportunity to speak to you during Senior Law Day. As I said, we are here for you, and our website contains a lot of great, more detailed information. So please reach out to us or consult that, and know that we're here to help. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Liz. And thank you again to everyone for joining us. And again, we have some great presentations coming up Tuesday and Thursday of each week. So we hope to see you then soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us through the website. Thank you again for joining us. And thank you again, Liz.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
day, everyone.